And we're live.
And we're live. I got a question. Do you believe in the law of attraction? Do you use the law of attraction? So if you believe in or use the law of attraction, give us a thumbs up or a yes in the comments below. If you don't, give us a no. That is kind of the basis of this Queer Money follow-up. On episode 5 of the Queer Money podcast, we interviewed Chad Nash, who is the founder of Data Springs and the co-partner of the app iScuba 2. He also is the author of the book The Lion in the Cubicle. Chad Nash is somebody we met in Denver and befriended, and we had him on the Queer Money podcast because we really loved what he was doing with his life at the time. At the time, he had been traveling the world for 24 months straight, left the United States and decided to become basically a nomad while he was still working. And we were very enamored with that kind of lifestyle. And so we had an amazing conversation about how Chad got to that place in his life. And what was very interesting is one of the quotes that really struck both of us was when he said, "I didn't choose to be gay, I just got lucky," which was so interesting because we think gay folks or queer folks in general break down into two camps. They either believe that they're lucky because they're gay or they believe that they're unlucky because they're gay. And Chad said that lucky people truly believe that they are lucky. And that's kind of what drove us into this whole conversation around the law of attraction.
Yeah, I think ultimately Chad ended up traveling the world for 36 months before he came back to the United States and settled down. And we were fortunate enough to visit him for a week in Madrid, Spain, when we were over in Spain during one of our trips, and I had a lot of fun with him. So, yeah, and he really embodies this whole law of attraction ethos. Just really generally jolly, happy man. And, what I thought was profound, too, was that, he grew up in a conservative town in Missouri,
Right.
And he was gay. He was a surprise to his parents, right? He was his next oldest sister was 14 years older than he was, so he was a surprise. And so by the time that he came into the world, his parents were a little bit more casual about life, and he came out of the closet. There was no problem with that, but he did have some challenges, obviously, that anybody has in a small conservative town in school, and what that encouraged him to do was to realize that, well, I'm not a bad person. I'm good. I have a lot of qualities and a lot to offer. And if these people can't see that, then they're wrong. But then if they're wrong about this, what else are they wrong about? And really what that got him doing was asking different questions and challenging a lot of the pillars that we all hold near and dear, such as needing to, live near the town we grew up in. So he or challenging whether or not he could start his own business, or challenging whether or not he could write a book. It really just kind of gave him a lot of courage to ask different questions and try different things that he might not have otherwise tried had he just decided to marry a woman, settle down, and have kids.
Right. It was interesting when we talked with him. The discussion kind of was very normal for a young person growing up in a town. It was just he said his life was kind of very matter of fact, but things really started to change for him after he got out of college and was working for a software company, and he had the desire to get the heck out of Dodge, and that was when he ended up moving to San Diego because he basically asked his boss. They had the company he worked for bought or acquired another company that was in San Diego, and he looked at that as an opportunity where I can keep my job, go somewhere else, be in a different city, enjoy living in a different city in a place where I may feel a little bit more comfortable. He didn't necessarily say he was running away, but he was looking for the lifestyle that little bit more matched what he wanted in life. And so he was putting himself out there to get what it is that he wanted. He also used this phrase, "like attracts life unto itself it is drawn." And we really like that because that is the whole idea of the law of attraction. If you really want something, it doesn't just automatically come to you. You have to do a few things. You have to think a little bit about that. You have to put some action into it. But then there is this attraction where that does start to come. Now, it's not that simple. You can't just say, I want to win the lottery and think about winning the lottery over and over again. But it really got this idea in our heads of, well, what do we want? What do we want to attract? How can we do more of that in our lives? Which I think is something that a lot of queer folks are not necessarily thinking about, especially when it comes to their personal finance situation or their career choices. We kind of, oftentimes it seems like we fall into the things that we end up doing in life rather than really going out there with, I'm going to pick this as my destiny. I'm going to attract this.
Yeah. I think it's for you and me, it's a very compelling story because we were very unconscious after we graduated college.
Right.
We were very unconscious when we set out on our own, when we started to live as adults. And for the good part of the first couple of years of our relationship, we were very unconscious. And that was most identified in our spending and our $51,000 in credit card debt, as well as other areas of our life. But that was probably the most striking evidence of the fact that we were just living unconsciously. And it seems, Chad, for the most part, has been very intentional in his living, and that's one of the reasons why he ended up going to San Diego, and he tried doing a couple of things, starting a couple of businesses, dabbling here and there, and he made some failures, he had some mistakes, and he kind of embodies this idea that, well, nothing was really a mistake, and nothing was really a failure, because he always sees everything as you're either winning or learning. And I would argue that had we recognized that we had $51,000 in credit card debt and not done anything about it, we wouldn't have learned at all, and that would have definitely been a mistake. I would also argue that we kind of 10 times that learning by trying to help other people with the very same problem that we had, and we know that many, many other people have the same problem. So many times I think a lot of LGBT people often think that, and it comes from a place of being torn down and bullied and picked on and all that as we're growing up and having all sorts of institutions, churches, education institutions, our parents, all sorts of media telling us that being bad is gay. So by the time we reach adulthood, we kind of think that, well, I'm just lucky to be surviving. I can't necessarily start my own business, or I can't hope to be a multimillionaire, or I can't hope to, like Chad, travel the world for 24 or 36 months straight without having to worry about where my next paycheck was going to come from.
Yeah. What was interesting, we started getting into the conversation of how it was that he was able to travel. And he kind of laid out this path. One of the things that was interesting is that it was clear all along the way, after he had moved to San Francisco, and maybe even before that, he was constantly educating himself on ways to bring the things that he wanted into his life, studying the law of attraction, listening to podcasts about the things that he wanted in his life, reading books, all of that kind of stuff kind of helped him create these mental tools. And during that process, he then, as John mentioned, he started his own company. He ended up getting into a partnership, or had a partner. They acquired a lot of things. They had a really nice house. They had a pool, really nice cars. And when all of that started to erode, when his relationship started to erode, he looked at it and said, well, what is it that I really want to do with my life? And that's when he said, I would love to travel. I think I'll go travel for a couple of months. And he sold his house, sold his cars, got rid of all of the responsibilities, so to speak, the responsibilities that he had financially, so that he could really lighten his load. And he actually said, the lighter we can be, the easier on ourselves and everyone else we can be. That's when the good stuff flows. When we make it hard, it's hard. And it's interesting that he said that a lot of people assume that he had a lot of money. And that happened to us when we went to Spain and lived in Spain for 3 months. A lot of people just assumed that we must have a ton of money to be able to live there, because they assumed that we had all the other stuff too, right? That we had a mortgage, that we had cars, that we had all these responsibilities back home in the United States that we were still paying for. But the reality is we didn't. We unloaded all of those so that we could go to Spain. And he basically did the same thing, and he was traveling the world, spending less money than he would have had he had the cars and the the house, and we were kind of the same way. We got rid of all of those things, and when we got rid of all those things, that allowed us to save up some money that allowed us to live in Spain, and we were living there much cheaper than we could had we not had all those, or had we had all those things.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, we lightened our own load, and I think is interesting is lots of times people don't think that that's really an option for them.
Right.
You kind of almost. Our society is based on consumerism, and everything around us constantly tells us that we need to consume, we need to consume, we need to consume. And you think that, well, you have to have a car, you have to have a house or a condo, you have to have all this clothing, you have to have all this product, you have to have all these things. And ultimately, you don't have to have all those things. You can really lighten your load. And for a lot of people, if they would lighten their load, they would really free themselves up. And, I think a great example of, when Chad broke up with his partner, he did go through, it was like a normal breakup. He went through some hard times, but he realized that wasn't really fueling his life anymore. And that, actually in a subversive way, that helped lighten his load in a way, and he could move on to bigger and better things. And he did. He did the 36 months of travel. He created a new business with the app, and he, as he's gone through his life, he's realized that basically it's his outlook, it's the vibration that he sets for himself that really dictates the outcome of his life. And when he was younger, he started to realize that he could be the architect of his own life. And he said he realized that at the age of 27, when he had all those materialistic things. He was floating in his pool one day in San Diego, and he realized, it kind of came to him. He's like, I'm the architect of all this. I created all this. I can influence all this, and I can attract more. I can attract less. I can attract other things. And that was when he really realized that there's more to life than just A plus B equals C. There's more going on. And he kind of one of my favorite quotes from him was that he said, people get so down and out on themselves. People can just be very down and out on themselves just because they're LGBT. They think the whole world is against them and nothing can go in their favor, and that we've got politicians and institutions and all sorts kind of pushing us down. But he says, what are the really important things? The sun comes up for you every single day. There are a multitude of butterflies and birds, and there are all sorts of the nature and all sorts of things to that are really, really more important in life than anything that most humans even consider or create.
Yeah, it makes me think of we had Dominique Jackson, the star of Pose, on the podcast, and I think that was episode 71. I can't remember for certain, but it reminds me that the fact that she, at a certain point, decided that she wanted an abundant life. She wanted a life full of abundance, and I think that a lot of us forget that we can choose the life that we want, and then we can lay out the steps that we can take to get to that life. And we don't need to trap ourselves. I think that one of the things that, it was actually episode 73. Thanks, John, just looked it up.
That's the power of the internet.
That we forget is there is so much good going on for us every single day, and we allow the bad stuff to cloud it out. And that's one of the things that Chad didn't do. He didn't allow the bad things that were going on in his life to cloud out the good things that were going on in his life. And when John and I have studied a little bit of the law of attraction, listened to a number of podcasts, and read some information, especially from Abraham Hicks. But one of the things that I always kind of remember is this idea that the universe is basically two vending machines, one vending machine that is full of all bad stuff and one vending machine that is full of all good stuff. And we have two monetary ways of getting stuff out of those vending machines. And that is, we think positive thoughts and we attract or pull out from the vending machine the good stuff. And we think negative thoughts and we pull out bad stuff from the negative or the bad vending machine. Now, granted, I will say that there are sometimes when some bad things happen to us that we have absolutely no control over. We aren't necessarily attracting those, but to a certain degree, we are still living a life of negativity. You see people who are negative all the time, and then you're not that surprised that these are the people that end up getting sick, have some sort of terminal illness, because their life is completely negative. And then you look at all of the things that they've done in their life that have kind of also been attached to that negativity, versus somebody who has had a positive outlook in their life, has tried to do positive things in their life, and you see the good things happen, and you can kind of see why that is happening to those individuals. Again, not that it's going to happen that way every single time, but there is a pattern there of when you're thinking good thoughts, when you're working towards good things do happen to you.
Yeah, I think, more often than not, as humans, we're conditioned to sort of look externally and think that all the external forces are what's making us happy. Whereas, what Chad was saying, we've got to be in tune with our own selves and what we're attracting to us, the level of vibration that we're on, and more often than not, the quality of our life is dictated by the vibration that we're emitting out. Yeah. What's going on inside of us, and it's not things that are happening to us; it's what we're attracting to us. He said that people are too often focused on the how of how they're going to achieve their dreams, or how they're going to achieve their success, or how they're going to get out of a bad situation, and they don't really consider the why. And he says very often we must learn to trust putting the cart before the horse sometimes, and that's the contrary of everything that we're ever told, right? Never put the cart before the horse. But sometimes you have to trust that if you have a dream, if there's something that you want to achieve, if you've been inspired in some way, shape, or form to create something, and you're not exactly sure how to do it, or how it's going to work, or whether or not it's going to work, don't get so hung up on that. It's like Mike Dooley often talks about the cursed hows. We're oftentimes so focused on how we're going to do it. How is it going to happen? Why is it not happening yet? What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I figure this out? When if you feel like that's what you're supposed to attract, if you feel like that's what your end goal is going to be, don't worry about the how. Just trust in the why.
Yeah. That's true. The whole idea of understanding what success looks like too is really important, because so often we get stuck that the only way I'm going to have success in my life is it looks exactly like this. And it's really hard to get to exactly like that, because every single day, every single moment of our lives opens up an opportunity or possibility for things to change just slightly. And sometimes missing the mark by just a little bit is actually where we're supposed to be, or where we truly wanted to be when it comes to success. Success is kind of, I in the podcast, I talked about it being in concentric circles, right? That where you want to be right here, but there are levels of success around that. And sometimes just getting to that concentric circle is the true place of where you're supposed to be. You're a little bit further away, but what being a little bit further away of the success that you thought you wanted, what it does is it opens your eyes to how, if I just pivoted just a little bit, I would actually get the true success that I really wanted, but I didn't necessarily know that I wanted when I was hoping for success back then.
It's like that famous quote that says, "Shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars."
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
It's still a success. You're still living in the stars. So Chad shared with us some tools and some tips that he suggests that folks adopt in their daily habits to help them recondition their thinking and change their level of vibration. That some of which we were already doing, some of which we've since adopted. The first was he recommended the Prosperity Game app. It's an app that you can download on your phone, Android or what is that, iPhone. I don't know what the price of the app was at the time, but we just checked, and it's currently $2. He also said, get in the habit, and we've learned this from several different coaches that we've had over the years, get in the habit of expressing gratitude every single day. It's a habit that it's easy to drop. It's easy to just be so focused on the negative, especially right now since we have so much negativity going on. It's easy to forget that there are actually good things going on in the world and good things going on in our life. So practicing happiness every day. And Oprah suggests using a gratitude journal. One of the things and I should have brought it in here with us, one of the things that David and I have been doing for the last couple of months is we have a gigantic ball jar, and we had a rainbow index cards, all different colors of the rainbow, and so we cut them up into little squares, and not every day, but we tried to remember every day to write one thing that we're grateful for. We fold that over and we put it into the jar, so that whenever we're having a down moment, whenever we get upset or angry, we realize we need to change our vibration. We're doing something wrong, and we're going to attract that we don't want. we stick our hand in the jar, open it up, and read it, and remind ourselves of all the gratitude that we have. And then another practice that David and I used to have, we haven't done this for quite a while, but when we both feel like we're in a negative space, when we've said something negative or we've sort of kind of gone into a downward spiral, which is quite easy to do these days, we have to counter that with 3 positive things. What are 3 things that are going on good in our life, in the world, or just in general, and try to change that level of vibration, and if nothing else, at least change our level of thinking at that time so we can move on to something more positive.
Yeah. It's interesting that I think a lot of us think that we don't have as much control in our lives as we do, but we really are in control of the destiny of our lives. It reminds me of the quote from Gandhi where he says that your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits, and your habits become your destiny. And there are so many examples of how that has happened to people over and over and over again. People who have gone from having nothing to having an amazing, abundant lives. And a lot of that started with the belief that they were in control, that they had the ability to choose. Happiness is a decision. We can choose to be happy. Just because we choose to be happy doesn't mean our lives are going to be blissful 100% of the time. But let me ask you, would you rather be happy more often than not? Absolutely you would. So why not choose to make the decision to be happier more often than not by trying to focus on the things that you want, focusing on the things that you can do and have control over and change in your life? It's your choice.
So we encourage you to, we want to know which path you choose, or do you choose your own path, or do you choose someone else's path? In the comments below, please let us know which path you choose, your own or someone else's. And let us know also what you might want to attract in your life for the next year or so. We'd love to hear some of your thoughts. So thank you again for joining us for another Queer Money follow-up. Here's your Queer Money takeaway from this episode. Again, please subscribe to the Queer Money podcast at debtfreeguys.com/QM.
Right there.
Wondering what you're doing down there. Thank you, and we'll talk with you. Lastly, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, continue the conversation in the comments below, just like we asked, or in the Queer Money Facebook group, and subscribe to the Queer Money podcast at debtfreeguys.com/QM.
And I'll just add, from time to time I get the question, what does this shirt mean? Because it seems like almost every single time I wear this, FI Curious, this is actually a shirt that is promoting financial independence. So people who are curious about financial independence, that's really kind of what this is driving at. It's a pun or a play on by curious. And we encourage you to become curious about the ability that you can achieve financial independence.
Yep. All right. We'll talk with you tomorrow.